Cageside with John Morgan.
We are back again, another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. What a great weekend to be just a combat sports fan. Not necessarily all dominated by MMA. We did have a lot, though. PFL. We'll talk a little bit about that. UFC on ESPN 50 from the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. What a great crowd, great card. Marred by the main event. We'll get into that. But where I want to start, I self-admittedly didn't get to watch it, but we're going to start with the problem child. I don't know if our hearts were ripped out this time or not, but we'll dive into it. A guy who did buy the pay-per-view, he spent his $59.99. I didn't. John Morgan, what's up, pal?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I feel like we need to state the reason that you didn't watch the pay-per-view at the top, because some people might be watching. They're like, bro, this was a big story. This was a big fight. You're just shirking your duties. You just don't even want to watch it. You were a little bit busy on Saturday night, were you not?
I was a little bit busy. I was at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, and I, again, making my Odie ranks up the reffing world, was, again, asked by the UFC to go and shadow the refs that night, which was great. I got to learn under the learning tree of Jason Herdog and Kevin McDonald, two of like the goats in this business. A lot of people might not know who Kevin McDonald is because he doesn't do ton of UFC events. Did a lot back in the day, but he actually like writes the rules and regs for the ABC, the Athletic Boxing Commission, the Unified Rules of Mixed Martial Arts. And being able to sit down in a room with him and Herzogs and just bounce things off of him, game-changing experience for me.
I love that. I love that you bring his name. So Jason Herzog, obviously, man, he is pretty high profile, works a lot in California, works a lot in Nevada, so he gets a lot of high profile assignments. I'm glad you mentioned the name Kevin McDonald because he's a guy that, works mainly on the East Coast, doesn't travel a whole lot. And I don't know the reasons behind that, but we don't see him around as much as we should, but he's a solid referee. So anyway, we could continue on with the Nate Diaz, Jake Paul conversations, but I just wanted to give you a little shine because I'm proud of seeing what you're doing, man. You're putting in the effort, man. We talk offline. I know how committed you are to this. I know how much you love the game. And I just think people like yourself that do have that passion, that do have that commitment, that are doing it for the right reasons, seeing them continue to invest and move up the ranks in the officiating world. It just does nothing but help the sport. So I felt you needed a little shine. I didn't want to think anybody thought you were just like, well, I was sitting around on Saturday night and I just didn't feel like watching the fights. My man was busy putting in the work. So
I was busy putting in the work and being live in that Bridgestone Arena, man. Okay, so like off topic, right? Metrics say we do better when we get right into the topic, but I got to bring something up, okay? Man, I was in the Apex Center, 3 weeks ago? A month ago now? And I was shadowing out there under Herb Dean. And then now I was in the Bridgestone Arena, sold out crowd, 19,000 people. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. When I was in the Apex, I'm like, yeah, man, I could jump in right now. I don't think I'd have a lot of nerves when this crowd is on fire.
So
in
much
a card, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing.
So much different. Yeah, you're right, man. The juxtaposition of the environments of those two places is crazy. I mean, obviously, the UFC Apex was incredibly necessary during the pandemic and all those things, and to be able to hold shows. And it's still a big part of the business plan of the UFC, but there's nothing like that super odd environment. And listen, man, Nashville, they deserve some credit because it's one thing to just say, hey, man, it's a big arena and the UFC put on a show. No. This place was sold out and it was full from early on, man. The crowd deserves some credit. And you're right. And I think that's something that people need to remember, too, about whether it be judges, whether it be referees, anything else. Like, come on, man. Those nerves that the fighters are feeling, it's similar for the officials as well. Now, granted, they're not going to get in a fist fight, but they're still going out there in the middle of this, huge electric crowd, man. Think about the people, the fear that a lot of people have of like public speaking, right? They don't want to get up in front of a room of like 30 people and talk. Imagine if you're going into a crowd of 20,000, you got to go perform and be under the spotlight. So that's cool. I didn't even think about the fact that you got to experience that as well, man. That's a different environment for sure.
Yeah, and I was actually quite surprised it was fully sold out, seat for seat, for a fight night. That just shows the power of this game, that promotion, and just the rabid fan base of MMA fans all over. But switching gears, Jake Paul, Nate Diaz, boxing in Dallas, Texas. From what I'm hearing, a pretty good good pay-per-view buys, but Jake Paul defeats Nate Diaz by unanimous decision. Now, we've both come on this show after Jake Paul fights and say, Jake Paul did it again. He ripped our hearts out of our chest by taking out one of our beloved MMA guys. I don't necessarily know I can say that this time because, one, let's be honest, it was expected, right? Nate was playing the game. He was getting a cash grab, and he did all the agitational things along the way, which makes us love Nate Diaz. It's like he really wasn't in it for the victory. He was in it for the Nate Diaz brand. He was in it to show like, you may be a boxer. You ain't going to hurt me though. And I can F you up anytime I really want you. So I don't feel like my heart was ripped out of my chest. Would you agree with my assessment?
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's funny. So I paid my $59.99. I kind of took to Twitter. I'm like, well, let's go. I'm team MMA all the way, man. I was for Nate Diaz. You said thought that Nate Diaz was going to come up short here. I thought that he was going to lose this thing, but I was hoping that it would at least be entertaining, that it would at least be fun, that it would at least be something I could hold my head high about afterwards. And that's what we got here. I mean, this thing started out bad. It started out early, and I thought, oh, no, this is going to be awful for Nate Diaz because he got hurt early. I mean, he's facing the younger, stronger, the dude that's been actually competing in boxing and has been honing his skills and getting sharp, right? I mean, that's what was happening early on. But Nate showed his durability, showed his stamina, and battled his way back into this thing. And by the end, you know, he's putting a guillotine choke in the closing seconds of the fight. He's making it entertaining. And, yeah, it was fun, man. I walked away afterwards a little sad, but kind of knowing that it played out the way I thought it would and just feeling like, you know what? I had a good night of entertainment. I enjoyed the fight.
It's very easy for the common person to not like Jake Paul. He makes it easy for you. But if you're a student of the game, kind of like me or you are, like, I don't find that as being as, I don't know, brash as some people want to take it, or just I don't know, for lack of a better term, like jerky, right? I have so much respect for Jake Paul in the way he's doing things. And even though he makes it not hard for the normal people, he's giving Nate the opportunity back. And I have nothing but the most, a tremendous amount of respect for Jake Paul simply by that. He goes, you came into my venue. I'll go into yours and I'll bring the payday for you in your venue. Now, I don't see any scenario where that can happen under the UFC banner, right? Because it's strictly saying it needs to be co-promoted by these two entities. But do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I've tried to tell people that all along. Like, look, if you don't like Jake Paul, like, first take a step back and at least look at what he's accomplished. Look at what he's been able to do in terms of promotion, in terms of what he's created for himself and created for other people. Now, then you say, yeah, but I don't really like the opponents he selected. And I agree with that, right? Like picking Ben Askren. I mean, come on. We knew what was going to happen there. Tyron Woodley, we kind of knew what was going to happen there. Anderson Silva, step up, but obviously a very, very, nearing the absolute end of his career and should he even be fighting type of Anderson Silva. Nate Diaz, sure, we know him more for his grappling, but we know he's boxed all along. I mean, Nate Diaz is a fighter, right? He's going to go out there and scrap. So I like to hear, and I always like to point out as well, look at most boxers. What is the path for most boxers? You're not fighting anybody early on in your career, right? You're fighting
not until you're like 30-0.
That's it. You go look at these records on BoxRec, right? You'll see some people that, I fought a guy, I debuted against a guy that was 0-18, and then I fought a guy that was 1-32. They're literally fighting nobody. They're fighting just
a lot of times. This is the dirty little thing about boxing. I'm sorry to cut you off. I gotta say
no.
And it's only because we've been in this game. Do you realize these boxers they are paying their opponents to fight them, to come in? I'm not saying it's fixed because it's not, but they're coming in, they're paying their opponent for the L to pad that record, because that's the only way in boxing to get there. Unless you're like a Triple G type or something like that.
Yeah. No, that's a phenomenal point. I'm glad you interrupted me to say that, because you're right. I bet a lot of people don't realize that. You assume the promoter put that together. Like, no, man, because nobody's paying to watch that fight, but that dude is paying his own way to help build his record to get himself up there. So that's kind of what Jake Paul has done here. He's just done it in a way that he's found a way that it's like people will actually be interested in it, right? Like, nobody cares about watching you fight some 0-18 can, right? But when you pick these names up, they have the same boxing experience. They're not really boxers, but you want to pay to see it. So I don't have that hate for Jake Paul that a lot of people have. And to your point, man, what a great thing, right? They put on the show. And Jake said afterwards, hey, man, I appreciate you coming to my realm. I'll tell you what, I respect you. I know you're a fighter. I'll go to your realm. I will fight you in MMA. Now, he'd still be the younger guy. He'd still be the bigger guy. He'd still be the stronger guy, but he wouldn't be the more skilled guy. Nate Diaz, when you add in everything else, when you add in the fact that he can shoot a takedown, that he can grapple, that if he puts you in that guillotine that he put in the 10th round, he's actually going to try to finish that. You know what I mean? It makes it entertaining. Now, he did come with the caveat, it's got to take place in the PFL banner. Nate said, look, I got to co-promote it as well. I got to co-promote it with Real Fight Inc. I don't think that's necessarily out of the realm of possibility, but, Real Fight Inc., they can work with PFL, but here's the deal, is you got that Conor McGregor trilogy on the table as well under the UFC banner for Nate Diaz. And if Nate goes and does a fight with PFL, is the UFC going to be like, oh yeah, by the way, great job at PFL. Come on back and let's do that Conor McGregor trilogy. I don't know. I think you might burn the bridge at that point. So I think there's some business opportunities to try to figure out which one makes more sense for you.
You know what? Well, one, if he goes into PFL for a one-off, even co-promoted, whatever, and he does not throttle that trilogy will not happen.
Right.
Okay. That's number one. Number two is, Dana White strikes me almost like a guy, kind of like a Vince McMahon type. It's like, I kind of water under the bridge. If it makes sense for business, we will do it. Right. Dana White's a smart guy like that. And the only reason I say that is because, they're doing promotion with Prime Energy.
Mm-hmm.
That the Pauls are heavily involved in,
Yep.
Logan specifically. And so, I see that as like a door where that, if they did co-promote with PFL and Real Fight Inc., and then once that one and done, he can come over, especially if he throttles Jake, then he can come over around that trilogy. I could see that happening because they're already doing promotion with a Logan Paul.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the whole thing is, and this is, obviously I've been dealing with Dana White and the UFC for a long, long time. I think the thing is, what you do is the play, if I'm advising Nate Diaz, the play for me is you go talk to Dana and Hunter first. You go talk to them and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Let me lay this on the table for you. Here's what I'm thinking. Jake has offered me this MMA fight. I think people would be interested in it. I think we can make a lot of money. Now, he said PFL. And look, ultimately, I want to come back and make sure that makes sense. And you just figure out, how does it make sense for everybody on the table? Because if it makes sense for them, as you said, Dana White's a smart man, right? He understands what makes money. He may say, okay, you know what? I like what you're thinking. I know how we can do this. Let me tell you how we get to where you want to go. Let's do this together. But I just think you go have that meeting first. Because if you just go off and say, you know what, man, I'm doing this event and, I don't care what the UFC thinks, then all of a sudden those opportunities might kind of, disappear into thin air, because now Dana, Hunter, the UFC brass, they feel like you kind of did them wrong. They feel like you kind of did business without them, without involving them. Now they say, you know what, we're going to go a different direction. So that would be my advice. Just go have that meeting, lay it all on the table, say, here's what I'm thinking. How do you guys want to be involved? Let's make this thing happen. Because you know what? I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it.
Yes.
I'd like to see it.
I would. Right. And so here's the hard thing for me, because it's hard for me to talk about boxing. I know the basics of it. I do know some of the dirty little secrets behind boxing just from being in the fight game for so long. But from a tactical standpoint of trajectory of careers, I'm the wrong guy to talk to, self-admittedly.
Right.
So I'm not going to ask I don't know where Jake Paul goes from here, but where does Paul go from here? I think, honestly, after this, unless it's a Conor McGregor, the recipe of calling out MMA guys past their prime is over.
Yeah, I think you're right. I kind of struggled to see what makes sense. Now, Jake, and his team, to his credit, they continue to find ways to get around that and to find new bodies and warm people up. He mentioned, maybe a rematch with Fury. Obviously he lost to Tommy Fury, split decision. He mentioned maybe that would be a rematch, and that might make some sense. Maybe it's there, but does it generate the kind of interest that this thing did? Did it generate the kind of buzz this did? No, I don't think it does. And, so then you think, well, I guess the other path would be like, do we go the traditional boxing route? He keeps throwing out Canelo's name, and God bless him, but come on, man. Canelo would massive size difference, but massive skill difference as well. I just don't think that would be pretty at all. So I don't see that happening.
Paul wouldn't touch Canelo Alvarez. Let's be honest.
Exactly. And that's the thing. While I don't want to, like, while I'm trying to say I don't disrespect Jake in terms of, like, I don't hate him. I don't hate what he's accomplished. I don't hate what he's does. I also don't think, while he is a real boxer and while he is committing himself to the sport, while he is committing himself to the craft, and while he is, by the way, helping provide some paydays for some other real boxers as well, like Amanda Serrano, super cool. But I just don't think he's to that level. So I don't see that as a real path. I most of the analysts, the true boxing analysts, because I'm the same as you, right? Like I watch the big fights here, but to consider myself an expert in boxing, I wouldn't insult anybody. I'm not. I'm an expert in mixed martial arts. I'm not an expert in boxing. But watching the boxing experts on the broadcast on Saturday night, they were even kind of taking shots. They were like, "Oh, I don't even know if we really just saw boxing. I don't know what that was. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was cool. But it's clear that they don't rate his skills very high. So I don't think going down the traditional boxing path is really a realistic option as well. So I think just the way it comes together, man, this MMA opportunity makes sense. And Jake Paul has signed with the PFL. I mean, they the PFL executives were in the house. Francis Ngannou was in the house. Don Davis is talking about maybe a fight at Allegiant Stadium. I mean, he's always thinking, out there, and who knows what could happen. But I think this fight makes some sense in MMA.
The kind of the $1 million question for me, and I kind of started this out by saying, my heart didn't get ripped out because it was expected. But did this hurt Nate Diaz?
I don't think so, because look, the way this thing started, I thought, he's about to lose everything because he's about to get throttled, right? I mean, he was taking some damage early on. I'm like, if this dude gets destroyed, like, I think a lot of things would disappear from the table, right? But what this ended up being was like a Leon Edwards fight, right? Where you go into the fight thinking, like, this dude's not going to win this fight. And, through 5 rounds against Leon, you're like, I knew this was going to happen. And then he hurts him in the 5th round and he points at him and everybody goes, oh, this is amazing. I love me some Nate Diaz. And that's what happened here, right? Like, he did get dropped. It wasn't a terrible knockdown. He got hit in the temple, was a little off balance, but got up and shook it off and continued to walk forward. And by the end, he's walking forward. He's doing the more damage. Again, I keep going back to that guillotine choke, but it was amazing. It's such a Nate Diaz thing to do right at the end. He guillotines with one arm, kind of flexes with the other. He put on a show, man. I think people walked out of that arena thinking, I still love me some Nate Diaz. I just think there's so few fighters, and Nate and his brother Nick, for that matter, have put themselves into this category where it's like the results don't even really matter. Like, you just want to see these dudes go in and fight. I don't care if they win. I don't care if they lose. I just know I'm going to get my money's worth. I'm going to enjoy it. And so, I don't think this hurt Nate Diaz at all. We knew he was out of his element, but that's the thing we like, right? Anybody, anywhere, anytime, any rule set, any sport. Like, if it's combat sports, I'm doing it. We knew he was out of his element. We knew he was fighting the younger guy, the bigger guy, the stronger guy, the more experienced guy, but he went and did it anyway. He put on the show. So I don't think it hurt him one bit.
And he got paid 8 figures.
And he got paid. Good for him. And I mean, look, and they're staying right there in the cage. Like, and by the way, if we'll run this back in MMA, $10 million. I'm putting $10 million on the table. I'm making the offer. We're not even putting it behind closed doors. I'm saying $10 million. Bro, a $10 million payday is not a bad night's work.
I will fight Francis Ngannou. I will, for $10 million. Not only that, I will fight Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury back to back for $10 million.
I'm with you. I might need somebody to help me count my money afterwards, but I'm counting it, bro. You know what I mean? I'm taking that $10 million.
Exactly. All right. Shifting gears. Just, that was fun. I think the lead up to it was fun as well. I mean, Nate Diaz is walking out of sit down interviews with Jake Paul. I mean, this is what actually, before we switch gears, this is what I'm going to say. You got the Nate Diaz greatest hits album in everything in this fight, and he gave it to you. And Nate Diaz is a lot smarter than people realize.
Did you see? It was great. So the media that was there, they asked him about him walking out on the interview. His answer was amazing. He's like, no, you guys left. He's like, I came out of the bathroom and everybody was gone. Like, there wasn't nobody here. Like, come on. Like, that's Nate Diaz. Like, I didn't leave. I had to get out, and I came back and everybody was gone. I was like, where were y'all at? I'm like, come on, man. So good.
Oh, man. Alrighty. Shifting gears. Back to MMA. Back to our bread and butter. UFC on ESPN 50 from a sold-out, rabid Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee, headlined by Cory Sandhagen when he defeated Rob Font by unanimous decision in what we can all agree was a lackluster main event. So much so that a lot has been made about Dana White walking out in the 4th round. Do you know who Dana White had to walk past to get out of there in the 4th round? I go, that's Dana.
Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm just going to sit here.
Listen, sometimes what people don't understand is Dana White, his private jet, it's on a schedule sometimes. You know what I mean? The show was running a little bit late, and he didn't meet. No, he was obviously frustrated, right? I mean, it was a lackluster main event. It was not great. It was a result for Cory Sandhagen that he needed. I mean, the guy wants to challenge for a title, and he's right there at the top of the division. But it wasn't the most exciting fight. Now, it comes out afterwards. It turns out that he may have suffered a pretty bad injury in his arm, tricep, a muscle tear that may have factored in anything. But, I watched on the post-fight show, and he's like, I don't think that really would have changed my game plan all that much anyway, to be honest with you. He's just, I know that Rob Font has a weakness in terms of his takedown defense, and so I exploited that. And it's funny because you and I are both grappling fans at heart. And so seeing a grappling-heavy result doesn't necessarily frustrate me, but I do believe that Cory Sandhagen could have opened up a little bit more, could have turned on the volume a little bit more, could have done more to try to finish this fight. So I was a little disappointed in the main event, but I'll tell you this, Eric, and I want to get your thoughts on the fight as well, but I'll tell you this. I'm giving Cory Sandhagen a free pass here, and let me tell you why. This man was scheduled to fight Umar Nurmagomedov, right? He was scheduled to fight the dude that didn't nobody want to fight, especially up at the top of the division, right? Where Cory Sandhagen, he can easily say, Umar, like, put in some work, son. You've got to get to my level before I fight you. And he said, nope, I will fight you. So while I don't love this performance and I don't walk away from this saying like, oh, that was amazing. I just can't. I also can't take any shots at Cory Sandhagen because this wasn't the opponent he was scheduled to fight. He was willing to face the boogeyman. He was the only guy to sign up and say, I'll face that guy. He didn't have to. He ended up facing Rob Font instead. But because of that, I'm giving him a pass here. What say you?
I don't think that there needs to be a pass or demonization either way. It's the fight game. Sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't. Listen, it's unfortunate that it happened in a main event on ESPN. Yes, that is unfortunate. Do I think Dana White's and the brass have a reason to be upset? Yes, they're in the business of promoting exciting fights. It hurts their business. Yes, they have a right to be upset. Do we as fans? I don't know. Let's talk about that. But at the end of the day, this is what you have to understand, especially in a grappling standpoint. And in a fight, it takes two to tango. Okay? And if it takes two to tango, and if you're going to pile on Cory Sandhagen, you have to pile on Rob Font as well. That's the way it goes. Because here's the deal. Me and you know this, but maybe not everybody does. Anybody who's trained, if you don't want to get submitted, it's very hard for people to submit you. And what I say by that, of course, nobody wants to be submitted, but you're willing to take chances to improve your position. And then that's where the traps and the setups and getting caught in a submission happens, is when you, the bottom fighter or the top fighter, take a chance because to advance my position or to throw a punch or to do something or to just advance the fight. Rob Font, for all practical purposes, was working one sweep the whole time, and it was a butterfly sweep. He got it very early on, got up, never got it again. Cory Sandhagen shut that down. And then Rob Font, let's be honest, he did not opening up his grappling exchanges. He stayed in there with a knee shield and a butterfly hook for 4 rounds straight. So it's not fair to put this all on Cory Sandhagen. That's my take on it.
You know what? That's an excellent point. And you laid it out perfectly, right? Because in the opening round, first round, you saw that escape from Rob Font. I was like, oh, wait, Rob Font's grappling game is a little better than I thought it was, right? But then you realize that was like kind of the only thing. And Cory Sandhagen made that adjustment, and there was nothing there. And I think you make a great point because I'll say that as well, just for grappling in general, like wrestling, right? You look at guys, fans will be like, oh, man, that dude was boring, man. Like all he did was just take the guy down and hold him. And then you'll even hear, and you even hear fighters sometimes like, oh, that dude, all he wanted to do was wrestle me. All that dude wanted, you know what? Stop it then. Stop it. Have takedown defense. Don't allow him to take you down. Find your way back to the feet.
Or furthermore, once you do, expose yourself a little bit if it's that important for you to get back up. Because if it's that important for you, then you need to expose a limb, a neck, a different position for you to get the fight back to where you want it. So, yes, let's just lead into the next question. That's what I got to say on this because it kind of got a trajectory here. Does the crowd have a right to boo, or better way of saying that, were they right to boo? Because what we just laid out right there is, I think, one person saying, I'm going to get this win no matter what. And the other guy saying, if I can't box the guy, I'm not getting submitted.
Yeah, I'm torn on that, right? Because on the one hand, you pay your money, you get to do you've earned the right. Now, I mean, you know, I've heard some fans say some things that are pretty gross, you know what I mean, that I don't want to hear out there, that you definitely don't have a right. But do you have a right to boo a little bit and to say, like, hey, I want to see something different. I paid my money. I'm here. I want to see something different.
The right to boo, I kind of chugged that and I said maybe a better way was like, were they correct in booing?
It's so crazy. Like, to me, again, look, I wasn't excited. I didn't love the fight. I don't know that I would have booed out that I was there. I might not have been standing on my feet applauding a whole lot, right? Because I was a little bit bored by it. But, I mean, Cory Sandhagen did what Cory Sandhagen had to do. And the rest of the night was pretty fantastic. So, man, if you were a fight fan, like, I think you feel like you got your money's worth. Like, I think you walk out of there and feel like you had a heck of a show. But it was a little bit, I hate to say it, because I hate to say that fans shouldn't boo. Like, I get it, man. They pay their hard-earned money to be in there. We all know how hard we work to have some money to go out there and have a good night with our friends, our family, whatever. We want to see certain things. But me, as a fight fan, me saying that I give the guy a pass, like, understand, A, what he was originally assigned to do, and B, at the end of the day, he's got to get a win, man. He's trying to get that. He's trying to get those 2 paychecks. He's trying to earn himself a title shot, and the way you do that is through winning. So I hate to ride on the fence, but I see both sides of it, man. I hate hearing fans boo, but I also understand the sentiment of why they were frustrated.
Here's the deal, Cory Sandhagen. If your ambition was to make exciting fights, you failed miserably in this one, at least.
Right.
But if your goal was to win and go up the ladder. Now, truth be told, I don't think he did himself any services in the rankings in the next opponent. You know, you even see Triple C come out and made a video. Did you see this?
Hey, Triple C's always watching. He's always going to interject himself into the situation. But, hey, that's smart. That's somebody that understands the game. Like, hold on. Dana White just walked out. I know the crowd's not happy. Here's my chance to pounce. Granted, it may be, you know, chasing somebody, kicking somebody while they're down, but I got to put myself into that conversation. And you're right. He said, look, that fight, I showed you guys it wasn't entertaining. I told you guys he wasn't that good. That's why me and Merab need to be next for the #1 contender. I thought that was brilliant by Henry Cejudo.
Absolutely, I did. And so my overall point with that is that I believe in a high-profile fight like this was on ESPN. I mean, we got to stop and think, just like we are broadcasting live on ESPN, how far this sport has come. It still blows my mind. I just had to throw that in. Cool. But fault is on both guys for not creating an exciting fight. It's just the way it is. It's, you know, and Cory decided not to stand up, throw the legs by, try and pass. He was working one pass the entire time. He knew he was in no threat of being swept. He kept a high underhook, pressure on the face the whole time, and it was just positioned. Rob wasn't moving. Like, was the crowd right to boo? I believe so. Right? They were right because we had this notion of who Cory Sandhagen was. We didn't see it. So in that standpoint, like, yes, but Cory, I would have done the same exact thing.
I'm trying to get a win,
I'm
baby.
not faulting you.
Again, let's not forget, man. You got your show money and you got your win money. You're trying to get that check. You're trying to get that second check. And again, you're trying to keep yourself relevant in the title picture. As you said, might have not done himself a lot of favors in the eyes of UFC brass. I mean, for Dana White to walk out in the 4th round, he's not coming back to the matchmaker meeting on Tuesday being like, we got to get that guy into a title fight ASAP. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you did what you had to do. And especially, you find out afterwards he had an injury in the 1st round. So how did that impact what he was able to do? I mean, he did what he had to do to pick up the win, as you said. You do what you got to do.
And it was dominant.
Anytime you're 50-45, anytime you're 50-45 against another top-level opponent. It's not like they just, grab some dude off the streets to face Cory Sandhagen. You know what I mean? Rob Font's a dangerous dude, and Cory Sandhagen legit shut him down. And he's low-key savage with his trash talk afterwards. Because I wasn't in the arena and I wasn't at the post-fight press conference, I was able to watch the post-fight show, and he comes up there and he's just like, well, Rob has a gaping hole in his game in terms of his defensive takedown defense and his grappling. He's like, so I just exploited that. And I was like, man, that is like savage trash talk. Like, it's 100% accurate. But you're just like, well, look, man, this was the easiest path. And there is something to be said. Look, Rob Font, man, he is a dangerous striker. Cory Sandhagen's a dangerous striker, which is why I think we were all like, oh, we're going to see fireworks, right? And Cory Sandhagen said, wait. No, this dude has a gaping hole in his takedown defense, and I am going to take the easiest path to success, and that's smart. Self-preservation is wise. Again, it may not be the most exciting thing. Fans want to see the blood and guts out there, but it gets you the win. So it's tough, man. Like I said, I want to remind everybody, he signed up to face the dude that nobody else wanted to fight. He ended up getting a different opponent. It wasn't the most exciting, but it's a win. It's a win, and Cory Sandhagen is still an incredibly skilled martial artist.
But the rest of the night was an amazing card. This crowd had no reason to be disappointed, and for the most part, they weren't. I didn't hear anybody saying like that fight card sucked, because it didn't. It was amazing. Let's start just at the prelims really quick. The first, I think, 4 fights, you go up through the Billy Quarantillo fight. The crowd was giving standing ovations at the end of every round. It was amazing. The first 4 fight of the nights all go to decision, by the way, but they were bangers. On any other card, any one of those first 4 fights could have gotten fight of the night. They just so happened that they was all on the same damn undercard.
No, I agree with you, man. It's so great. I mean, I could literally spend the whole show breaking down the prelims of this card. I mean, Sean Woodson facing Dennis Bazookia. Bazookia came off short notice, you know what I mean? A CFSC veteran, so I was happy to see him get the assignment, but he had a tough weight cut. And Sean Woodson, by the way, 6'2" in that division, man, in the featherweight division. It's crazy, man. You just don't see that. And his striking is so slick. It's just a tough matchup, but Dennis Bazookia showed his heart until the very end. So, I look forward to seeing more of them. Cody Durden and Jake Hadley. That second round was one of the greatest rounds of the year, man. Just you had near finishes on both sides of the equation. I mean, that was amazing. Damon Jackson, love both those guys. You knew it was going to be exciting. It was. Dude, I'll leave it. Carlston Harris, Jeremiah Wells. I mean, Jeremiah Wells just dominated. Carlston Harris has this insane comeback. I mean, you're right, man. The prelims, Kyler Phillips, Tony Barcelos are fun. That Asu Mabayev over Ode Osborne to start things out. Asu looks like a dude that you really want to pay attention to. So you're right. The whole prelims, man, phenomenal.
There was an exchange in that Durden Hadley fight, right? I was sitting Cageside, and I was just like,
crazy. He
was in a full-on Darce choke. Full on. I mean, and he was like, if you guys can see what I'm doing here, it is so tight that Hadley is like bracing it. Somehow comes up to his knees, shucks it, and takes the back of Durden in one motion.
I mean,
some of the most unbelievable half-second switches of positions that I've ever seen.
Unbelievable, right? And then goes from there to the arm bar that you're like, oh, this is definitely finishing the fight. And Durden's like, no, I'm good. I mean, you can see him. He's like wincing in pain, but he's like,
actually, it's funny. No. I had a bird's eye view of that, and I knew the arm bar, even though it was extended, it really wasn't in play. The thumb was in the wrong position, right?
Right.
Because it was underneath his arm, and so that's why if you go back and watch this, another referee, phenomenal referee, this guy named Jimmy Neely, he saw that as well,
right?
And so, started seeing, he was seeing if he was out cold, because people don't understand that there was a triangle in play too. The triangle was more vicious in that moment than the armbar. The crowd was screaming because of the armbar. The real grapplers knew the triangle was the threat.
Unbelievable, man. And he survived it. He just battled through it, just would not give up, man. You could see it, just the tension there, man. And battled through it, and then comes back. I mean, and look, and Hadley, to his credit, like nasty cut over his eye, man. I thought that might end it after the opening round. I mean, just phenomenal fight, man. That was great. Like you said, it's just absolute bangers. And what's cool is as we touched off the top, the crowd was in the building for it, right? They showed up early, man. And I think, the difference between boxing and
Vegas.
MMA.
Come on, Vegas, show up early.
Ooh, yeah, that's Vegas. And I love living in Vegas, but yeah, the Vegas crowd does not show up early. But that's the difference. That is the difference between an MMA card, especially a UFC card, versus high-level boxing, right? Is, high-level boxing, the early, I mean, you're seeing guys that are just starting their careers. It's not competitive. I mean, these UFC cards, they're stacked from top to bottom, man. The talent that's on the prelims, just because they're on the prelims. Like, for instance, I mean, Durden and Hadley, I thought was going to be a banger. I didn't know it was going to be that big of a banger. Quarantillo Jackson, when they announced that, as soon as they announced that, I'm like, oh, that's going to be a banger. You knew it. You knew it going in that they were going to be phenomenal fights. So, yeah, man, if you get a chance to go to a UFC event, man, show up early. Show up early, because you will see great action from start to finish.
And if you guys have not, we'll get to the main card here in a second, but the Cody Durden Jake Haley fight, go watch it.
I agree.
And watch that second round in particular. It could have been the round of the year.
I'm telling you, it was one of the greatest rounds. It was just on my feet, dude. That was unbelievable, man. When you can have that type of ebb and flow where both guys nearly get finished in the same round, that's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Okay, so let's jump all the way back up to the top of the card again. Tatiana Suarez defeats Jessica Andrade by second round guillotine choke. Suarez 10-0 now. And she is demanding. Not demanding. She is saying she needs the title shot next. I can't disagree with her. She's got 10 wins. I mean, let's go back. I can't think of it. I just lost it. She's knocked off a number of former champions now, too. I mean, that's kind of the crazy thing about this.
Yep, Carla Esparza and Alexa Grasso are the other two champions that she's beaten. So you're talking about three, and you're right. So people that might not know about Tatiana Suarez, you're right. I mean, 10-0, undefeated, unbelievable wrestling. People, early in her career were taking to call her the female Habib, because her wrestling was so dominant. But she had a severe injury, right? Like, she was out. She was out for 3.5 years, man, that she wasn't able to compete. And I think she lost a lot of that momentum. Right. But you have, after a performance like this, you just have to be reminded of it. And you have to go back and take in what she accomplished early in her career in that first run. It's not like she was starting from scratch. So, yeah, to be honest with you, I would have no problem with her fighting for a title next. At worst, maybe one more. But I'm telling you, man, she's the type of talent. And normally, I'll find somebody and I'll see somebody skilled and I'll be like, you know what? I think that person's good enough. They're going to fight for a UFC title one day. And I never really, very rarely do I say that person will be a champion, because I think, well, they're good enough to get there, but then you got to see who's on the other side of the cage when they get there. What's the matchup going to be like? How are they going to perform on that night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. With Tatiana, I have no problem saying she will be a UFC champion. There is not a doubt in my mind that she will be a UFC champion. She is just that dominant, man. I mean, to do what she did to Jessica Andrade, which is, and Jessica, a well-respected, pound-for-pound great former champ, dangerous power, to go out there and to, hey, you know what? I'll strike with her for a little bit, but then when I decide that we're going to the ground, we're going to the ground, and that's just how it's going to happen. I mean, it just another level.
And she stood in the pocket with her. She was not scared of those exchanges. But let's kind of let's recap. Coming up in September, you have Grasso and Shevchenko, the rematch. Depending on the way that goes, timing is setting up perfectly.
Oh, it is. Well, and the thing is, here's the thing is, she could be a champ in 2 divisions. Like, her first fight back was at flyweight. This one was at strawweight. So, I mean, she might be able to challenge either one. You got Zhang Weili coming up as well. I mean, Zhang Weili is awesome as well. Can Zhang Weili deal with that wrestling game? Like, I don't think so. Oh, she's next level, man. I'm telling you, if you're not on the Tatiana Suarez bandwagon, jump on quick, because the seats are filling up.
I am. All right. I'm on that bandwagon. I was actually in the rules meeting with Kevin McDonald, was the ref of that fight. And so I went into that rules meeting as I was shadowing Kevin a lot that night. And And you always go through the normal things like, hey, if there's a submission and they tap, like don't stop until I stop it because I might not have seen the fake phantom tap or something like that. And I remember her coach just said something. And this was like, and I knew the mind frame was there right when this happened because she was like, yep, no, I ain't gonna let it go. And her coach was like, you ain't got to worry about that with her. She's gonna take the neck or the arm. That's what it was said in the rules meeting.
That is awesome. That is so great. And it's so true, man. Listen, you know, she's got a little edge about her, right? She's got a little, did you see after she gets the finish, the way she's storming around the cage? I mean, I tweeted, I was like, she's looking for somebody else to tap out. She's like, who else you got? Bring him in here right now. Like, she's got a little savage edge to her, man. She's great. And got her black belt as well. I mean,
yeah, that was awesome.
That was a cool one. I don't think people realize how much that means to, you know, lifelong martial artists to get their black belt. I mean, it's a huge moment in their career. So to get it, you know, in the octagon on ESPN, I mean, after a big win, super cool as well. Just, I mean, you can't say enough about her and her performance.
Andrade, 3 straight losses. Hate to see it. Kind of shocking to say she's coming off of 3 straight losses now. Where does she go from here?
It's tough, right? Because she is like anybody, anywhere, anytime. Like she will not turn down anybody. I mean, the matchups that she's taken, Tatiana, nobody wants to fight Tatiana. Erin Blanchfield was somebody that nobody, you know, really wanted to fight because she's kind of an up-and-comer that doesn't really have a name yet. Yan Xiaonan, a tough top-of-division athlete. So, I know Jessica Andrade is well-loved by the company because she is the kind of person that just says, yep, what do you need me to do? I'll go do that. Let's go. I mean, this was already her 4th fight of the year against top-level competition. Yeah. I mean, she'll take anybody. So I think she's okay. I think she's fine in terms of like, does the UFC still want her around? Yeah, they do, man. They love her. You know, I don't think her career is in jeopardy, but in terms of,
do we think she's the gatekeeper now?
Unfortunately, yeah, I think that's kind of the position that she's in, and that's not, you know, and I always like to say when we throw out the term gatekeeper, because I think a lot of people use that as a negative term, right? Like it's not you're not calling somebody a can if you say they're a gatekeeper. No. What you're saying is, look, man, if you believe you're elite level competition, if you believe you deserve at the top of the division, you have to get by this person. You have to get past this measuring stick. And I think that's what Jessica Andrade is at this point. And again, I don't want to take away from her. I mean, she is a former champion, you know, potentially a future Hall of Famer. I mean, she takes all comers. But yeah, I don't know that she's necessarily going to hold the title again. But what I do know is, you know, she's still elite level, and she still is that kind of standard bearer for the division.
All right, rounding out the rest of that main card, Dustin Jacoby, Diego Lopes, and Tanner Boser all looked awesome, man. All those fights were great. Dustin Jacoby, 1st round knockout. Man, the crowd, they were going crazy for Diego Lopes. I don't know why. Was there is there something I was missing, or it's just like sometimes crowd just like, I'm gonna pick this guy?
Well, dude, I think this guy is a name to pay attention to. Diego Lopes, you know, he came in, he fought Mosar, right? A fight that nobody wanted to fight, and he had an amazing performance against him. Got fight of the night, right? And then he comes in and takes this one, has an incredible finish, right? I mean, not quite a flying finish, but a flying setup, right? He leaps in to set it up.
He jumped in with a flying triangle to get the ground of the fight, and I turned to sitting next to I forgot who. Maybe it was Kevin McDonald, and I go, he just jumped a flying triangle. I never see that in MMA.
No, it's amazing. He's an exciting athlete. And again, he, you know, took a little bit to get to the finish, but he got there. So now this guy, I love stories like this, man. This man in May took a short notice fight against Mosar Evloev, a guy that nobody wants to fight, took him to the distance. I mean, made it an amazing fight, got fight of the night. He comes back 3 months later, gets this incredible submission win, gets a performance bonus, right? So here's a dude that in 3 months has made $100,000 in bonus money, plus his pay money, his win bonus, all that, and I think has conceivably changed his life. Now, you know, are you retiring on $100,000? No, you're not. You know what I mean? But
you're not struggling to pay rent though either.
That's it. You're caught up now. You know what I mean? You paid your dues, man. It took you 25, 26 fights to get into the UFC, but you got there. You got there by taking an assignment that nobody wanted. And you've gotten back-to-back bonuses in 3 months. You have effectively changed your life through your performance. So it's great to hear that the crowd was popping for him that much, man. Because I think this dude is shown he's worth watching.
Yeah, I'm kind of going over. Yeah, it's only kind of surprised. I do just by the reaction, and you saw like the natural charisma, good looking guy. He's like literally like the package that a promotion would like. I think we are potentially looking at a future star here.
I agree. Again, and man, it says something. You know, when a lot of athletes are in a rush to get to the UFC, right, man? I mean, because that's where the biggest paychecks are. That's where the biggest platform is. It's completely understandable, right? So you're 6-0, you're 7-0, and you're saying, UFC, call me. Where you at? Let's go. But there is something to be said. You know, it's not necessarily the path you want to take, but for somebody that has 25 fights under their belt, you know what I mean? The comfortability level that you get in the cage, the little tricks you learn about how to survive, how to succeed, and again about the promotional side of the game and how to be entertaining. I mean, this fight game is weird because it is about wins and losses, but it's about entertainment as well. And you know, he's kind of, you know, he's taking the road less traveled, you know, the longer journey to get there, but I think it's going to pay off for him in the end. So I think you're right. It's great to hear that the fans are already warming up for him, because I'm excited to see what this dude's accomplished already. And I think he's, you know, primed himself to do some pretty big things.
All righty, kind of that wraps up our take of UFC on ESPN 50 from Nashville. You were in San Antonio. How was the PFL? We don't got too much time to talk about it, but how was the whole overall event?
It was great, man. It was really fun. I had fun being in San Antonio. I'm a Texas boy, so it's always fun anytime I can get back there for a little bit. But the event was fun. Kind of a new venue that they were at in San Antonio, but they built it out really well. And I thought the show was entertaining. And you know, they've got this you know, this playoff format where, you know, you're gunning for $1 million. And it was funny because I was really looking forward to maybe Bubba Jenkins and Chris Wade going to the featherweight final because they hate each other. and they're both great fighters, but when you can get a little grudge match in there as well, it just makes it that much more entertaining. Instead, it went the exact opposite way. Jesus Pinedo and Gabriel Braga both won their fights, so they'll fight for $1 million in November. But I think it's cool as well, because even if it wasn't the fight that I was looking forward to, man, it's two dudes that are awesome, that are talented, they're fresh names. They've got a little rivalry as well, so I mean, that's a great one. Also, Josh Silveira, the son of Conan Silveira, an MMA legend. You know, a lot of people probably might not know the name, but would probably recognize the face just because he's in the corner of so many high-level American top-team fighters, and now his son is at the highest level as well. Josh Silveira against Impa Kasanganay, a guy that has, you know, really, you know, paid his dues as well. Had a go in the UFC, didn't necessarily go his way. Was on the wrong end of an all-time level highlight, right? But now. And has this amazing story. Impa was talking about the fact that, you know, he was, you know, after he was released from the UFC, he was frustrated and was having some rough times in his personal life, was actually sleeping in his car out in the parking lot of the gym. And Henry Hoof saw it and was like, dude, come in, at least like sleep in the gym. Don't sleep in your car, you know? And now, you know, that was a year ago. The man sleeping in his car to chase his dreams. And now he's going to be fighting for $1 million in November. I mean, it's just stories like that are amazing, man. They really are.
That is awesome. Next week at the Apex Center, you're going to be there, Luque versus Dos Anjos.
I will be here. Yeah, we got a busy week coming up. We got the return of Dana White's Contender Series actually Tuesday night, which I love seeing that next level of athletes. So I'll be there for Dana White's Contender Series, and I'll be there for the UFC event coming up on Saturday as well. So a busy week in Las Vegas coming up.
And then we're only a couple weeks away. Boston, Massachusetts. Aljamain Sterling, quick turnaround versus the Sugar Show. I can tell you.
That's amazing.
I can tell you I am fired up for this fight because the UFC does what the UFC does. Like at first I'm like, man, Aljo's probably not going to be able to take him down, do what he wants. And then the promotional package comes out.
Yeah, bro.
And I'm like, the Sugar O'Malley, he can do it. He can do it. He can do it.
The UFC can build a promo. It was super cool. Like, I don't know if you got to see it. So they showed the promo in-house in Nashville, but they also had a camera on Aljamain. And so on the broadcast.
I was standing right behind the cameraman who was in Aljo's face. So yeah, I was watching because I was watching what is his reaction going to be.
And it was cool because I don't know if they put the picture-in-picture on the in-house monitors. So on the broadcast, they actually put the picture-in-picture. So you're live watching Aljamain watch that promo as well, right? Which, I mean, they do such a good job of telling the story in those promo packages where it's like, look, Aljo is dominant, man. He's a guy that maybe doesn't get credit for being as good as he is, but this dude, Sean O'Malley, is dangerous, and he's got swagger, and he's got confidence on another level. So, I mean, I'm hyped for this. I am really, really hyped for this fight. They did ask, actually, afterwards, they asked Cory Sandhagen, and Cory was like, look, man, we've seen a lot out of Sean O'Malley, but we haven't seen it at the high level that we've seen with Aljamain Sterling. So I'm leaning towards Aljamain Sterling just because I feel like, he's been doing it at the highest level where Sean hasn't really gotten there yet. And I think that's a great initial take. But Sean O'Malley is slick on the feet. And I think his jiu-jitsu is better than people give him credit for, and we'll have time to break it down. But he's slick on the feet, man. Just fast, dangerous, long, power, sits people down. This is a great fight, man. This is a great fight.
I'm actually stalling for time here because I'm trying to. I want to go see what the odds are already on this. Have you taken a look at all?
Ooh, you know what? I haven't. All right, you're gonna pull it up. Have you pulled it up yet? Because I have not checked it out yet.
I have not. I'm trying to.
All right, well then I'll try to find it first.
It's still a few weeks away, so it's not like at the top of these feeds. You know what I mean? All sports. Hold on. Here we go. Where's?
All right, I got it. You want to guess? You like to put me on the spot?
No, I haven't looked it yet.
All right, I found it. I've got him up.
Aljo minus 250.
Spot on, bro. I'm seeing it anywhere from like 255 to 275, and I'll be honest with you, I think that's an accurate line in terms of the fight itself.
It's what we've seen. It's what we've seen.
It's what we've seen, but I'm going to tell you what, man, that's a bit of a shocking line to me because I do feel like in a lot of ways, man, when we see these lines, a lot of them have like that public sentiment value built into them as well. And I feel like Sean O'Malley is the more popular guy, the more, the one that has a bigger fan base, so to speak. So I thought, honestly, the odds would be closer, but I think that is an accurate representation of the fight itself. So I'm a little bit surprised. I would have gotten that one wrong. If you were the one that pulled up the line and I was the one guessing, I would have thought it was a little bit closer, but I think that's an accurate representation of the fight.
We haven't seen O'Malley in those really bad positions on the ground yet. You know what I mean? That's where it comes from. It's not a matter if O'Malley doesn't knock him out in the first couple minutes, the fight's going to the ground.
Yep. And now, by the way, Aljamain Sterling looks like he's been in the gym a little bit lately, huh?
How that guy makes 135 pounds is beyond me. He's damn near my size. I mean, I'm obviously got a few inches taller than him. Yeah. I'm a little bit thicker than him and whatnot. But I look at him and I said, that defies logic that you're getting down that small.
It's crazy, man. Sean O'Malley's been trying to bait him a little bit and be like, how's the crash diet going? Don't forget we wins and all this. And Sterling's been posting those pictures and those videos from the gym. It's like, that dude is in insane shape, man. It's crazy.
It is, man. But I can't wait we can get into that next week as then we recap Dana White Contender Series and the Apex show coming up. What do you got? You already said what you got going on. Anything other than MMA this week going down?
I'm loving it, man. It's gonna be a busy week, man. It's gonna be a busy week. I'll be at the Apex pretty much every day this week, getting ready. Once the Contender Series gets rolling, man, it's a machine every Tuesday night for 8-10 weeks. But I love it, man. I really do because I mentioned I like those stories of guys that are chasing their dreams, man. And that's what every week it's dudes that are on the cusp of getting a UFC contract, man, what they've been chasing. So they go out there and they leave it all out there. It's fun. So yeah, busy week this week. Like I said, we'll be at the Apex for 2 different events this week. So it'll be fun.
That is awesome. I don't know what I got going on. I got 2 kids, a 4 and a 2-year-old. They tell me what I got going on.
That's enough right there, man. That's a busy life as well.
Hey, I got 7 hours of sleep last night.
That's huge for 2 kids. That's big.
I've been yawning today. I'm like, I think I got too much sleep last night. But anyways, be that as it may, you can follow John Morgan on Twitter at @John_Morgan_MMA. Again, I bring nothing useful to the table, but _MacLife. Give me a follow. I get razzed by all my buddies. You don't have any Twitter friends. I'm like, or is it called X now?
It's X now. It's not even Twitter anymore. It's X.
You can follow him on X. It almost sounds dirty to a degree. Follow my man John Morgan on X.
But, I don't know if you want to do that.
Yeah. John Morgan _MMAE _MacLife for me. That's going to wrap up this episode. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.